They say it like it's weather. You're imagining things, my mother says. You always have. I'm standing in the doorway of my old room. The light is off. The window throws a thin blade across the floor, stopping just short of the bed. On the nightstand, the wrong pill bottle sits open. Blue cap. Not mine. My father is in the chair by the wall. He doesn't look at me. He nods once. That's all. My hands start shaking before I notice them. It's small, fingertips first. My breath catches halfway in, like my body forgot the rest of the instruction. For a second, everything goes quiet, the way it does right before something breaks. She keeps talking. Says I've always been dramatic. Says I confuse things. Says this isn't happening the way I think it is. I look at the bottle again. The label is wrong. The dosage is wrong. It smells faintly sweet, chemical. My stomach tightens. I imagine a child-sized palm knocking it over in the dark. Pills scattering. A mouth that trusts without knowing why. The room feels colder, smaller. The carpet is rough under my bare feet. Dust hangs in the air, lit like ash. The nightstand drawer is half open, wood nicked from years of use. Somewhere a clock ticks too loud. I picture a small body curled tight, listening for footsteps. Believing silence means safety. It is the kind of believing children do when no one corrects them. That thought lands and doesn't move anymore. I almost speak. I feel it rise, heat, panic, the old reflex to explain myself back into safety. My jaw trembles. My shoulders dip. Then I stop. I straighten my back. I plant my feet. I let the shaking burn itself out. My voice doesn't come out loud, but it settles inside me, flat and steady. I don't argue. I don't cry. I don't ask her to listen. I let the silence sit there, heavy enough that she notices it. Down the hall, I can see light spilling from another room. Brighter. Wider. I catch the edge of a long table, stacked papers, chairs pulled close, shapes of other people waiting, not looking at me yet. My mother watches my face like she's waiting for the old version to show up and beg. My father stays still. I give them nothing. The moment locks in. Something shifts its weight. I understand suddenly that this isn't a misunderstanding, it's a decision. And decisions can be answered. Not here. Not yet. I don't feel angry after that. That's the first surprise. The shaking stops. My breath evens out. Whatever wanted to argue burns off fast, like a match with no air. In its place comes something cleaner, quieter, almost logistical. I understand that nothing needs to be said yet, not because they're right, because words won't move what facts will. I look at my mother and see certainty, borrowed certainty, fragile but loud. I look at my father and see the safety of silence, the kind that mistakes stillness for innocence. They think this moment ends here. They think denial is a full stop. It isn't. Inside, something reframes itself. Not revenge, not anger. Orientation. Like a compass settling once it finds north. This won't be emotional. It can't be. Emotion is what they expect. Emotion is what they're practiced at dismissing. Tears. Raised voices. Explanations that sound like weakness once repeated. I've tried that language before. It never survived the room. So I don't plan a confrontation. I plan a record. I start paying attention in a different way. Not with urgency, but with patience. I notice how often the truth almost slips out and then gets swallowed. How paperwork moves faster than memory. How systems don't care who raised you. I wait. Waiting doesn't feel passive, it feels deliberate, like holding a door open long enough for something heavy to come through on its own. Time compresses without announcing itself. Days stack, weeks thin out. Conversations repeat themselves, confident and unchanged. Denial loves repetition. It mistakes familiarity for proof. I don't interrupt. I observe. I learn when to speak less, when to write more. I learn that calm is unsettling to people who rely on reaction. I learn that nothing scares certainty like quiet preparation. This isn't about catching them in a lie. Lies can be argued. This is about letting the truth arrive with witnesses. Because it will. It always does. There are places where words are weighed differently. Rooms with longer tables. Chairs arranged to face each other instead of circling. Paper that doesn't forget what it's told. People whose job is not to comfort, but to verify. I think about those rooms without imagining faces. I think about surfaces, polished wood, stacked folders, pens aligned just so. I think about how sound carries when people are listening for facts instead of feelings. I don't need to rush that moment. Rushing would only give them time to perform, so I prepare quietly. I keep my posture neutral, my voice even. I answer questions when asked and stop when the answer is complete. I let silence do its work. Silence makes space. Space reveals things people forget they're hiding. They don't notice the shift at first. Why would they? To them, nothing has changed. I'm still here, still calm, still not pushing back. That looks like surrender if you don't know what patience is for. But something is moving. Not fast. Not loud. Not yet. What's coming doesn't need my outrage to survive. It only needs light. And light doesn't argue. It shows. When it happens, it won't be private. It won't be whispered in a hallway or softened by apologies. It will be witnessed. Documented. Repeated back by someone with no history in the family. And denial won't recognize itself until it's too late. I hold that knowledge without clinging to it. I let it sit where panic used to be. Solid. Predictable. Almost boring. That's how I know it's real. Some things don't announce themselves as justice. They arrive as facts and refuse to leave. I've always been the reliable one, not the loud one, not the favorite. The one who notices what's missing before anyone admits it is. The one who fixes things quietly so the day can keep moving. When a bill didn't get paid on time, I handled it. When a form needed filling out, I did it carefully, twice, and put it back where it belonged. When tension started to rise, I learned how to lower my voice instead of raising it. I learned where to stand in a room so people felt steadier when they looked up. That was my role. Not assigned. Assumed. I kept the peace by absorbing it. I knew schedules. I knew passwords. I knew which conversations to redirect and which ones to let burn out on their own. I didn't announce these things. I just did them. Reliability doesn't need applause. It needs consistency. There were plenty of moments when I could have exploded, when yelling would have been justified, even expected. I didn't. Not once. No slammed doors, no threats, no ultimatums delivered for effect. I didn't gather witnesses or rehearse speeches. I didn't punish silence with noise. I stayed inside the lines. That mattered to me. I respected boundaries, even when they weren't returned. I knocked. I asked. I waited for permission that rarely came, and when it didn't, I adjusted instead of forcing my way through. I learned how to make myself smaller without disappearing completely. That took skill. That took restraint. People mistake restraint for weakness because it doesn't demand attention, but restraint is work. It's choosing the long route every time there's a shorter one that would hurt someone else. And I handled logistics so others could stay comfortable. I bridged gaps that weren't mine to cross. I made excuses for people who didn't bother making them for themselves. I translated moods. I smoothed transitions. I kept things functional. There was no secret rebellion running underneath it. No double life. No score being kept. If there was resentment, I swallowed it before it reached my mouth. If there was anger, I burned it down to something usable. Focus, care, follow through. I didn't retaliate because I didn't believe in retaliation. I believed in stability. I believed that if I stayed steady long enough, the ground would eventually hold. That belief cost me things. I knew that even then, but I accepted the cost because it felt cleaner than chaos. When accusations came, I didn't counterattack. I clarified once. When that didn't work, I stopped explaining. Explaining turns into begging faster than people realize. I refused that shape. I never raised my voice. I never tried to embarrass anyone into accountability. I never used public moments to settle private wounds. Even when the room tilted against me, I didn't push back to tilt it the other way. I stayed measured. That choice matters now, because integrity isn't proven by how loudly you defend yourself. It's proven by what's left when the noise clears, by patterns, by records, by the absence of theatrics. If there had been screaming, they could point to that. If there had been threats, they could hide behind them. If there had been scenes, they could rewrite the story as mutual. There weren't. There was only consistency. I did my part. Every time. Quietly. Repeatedly. Without asking for credit. I didn't break trust to protect my pride. I didn't trade calm for leverage. I didn't scorch the ground just to feel powerful for a moment. That doesn't make me perfect. It makes me credible. And credibility is what holds when stories collide. When people later ask how things reached the point they did, there will be no footage of me losing control. No messages sent in anger. No witnesses to reckless words. Just a long, unbroken line of restraint that refuses to bend into the shape of guilt. That line matters, because when the narrative finally changes, and it won't change because I demanded it. It will change because there's nowhere else for it to go. Some people think innocence needs defending. It doesn't. It waits. It doesn't happen all at once. That's the part people miss. It happens in pieces small enough to dismiss. I stacked just far enough apart that each one feels survivable on its own. Nothing dramatic. Nothing you could point to without sounding oversensitive. Just enough erosion to keep you tired. The first few times, I assume it's stress. A phone call where I mention something specific. An instruction, a warning, a detail that mattered. And my mother pauses, then laughs softly. That's not what I said. Her tone is gentle, concerned, almost kind. You must be remembering it wrong. I check my memory the way you check a loose tooth. Carefully. It feels solid. I let it go anyway. Another time, I bring up a decision we agreed on. She tilts her head. I don't remember that at all. My father is on the line too. He doesn't correct her. He hums, non-committal. Silence has weight when it sides with someone else. I tell myself it's nothing. At a family gathering, the story shifts again. A version of an event I was present for gets retold without me in it. My role disappears. My words are reassigned. When I try to clarify, my mother waves a hand. You're being sensitive. Someone laughs. The room moves on. I stand there with my drink warming in my hand, feeling late to a conversation I helped start. Later, privately, I ask my father if he remembers it differently. He shrugs. I don't know. Your mother's been under a lot of stress. That's it. No follow-up. No curiosity. Stress becomes explanation enough to erase facts. It keeps repeating. I say something plainly. It comes back altered. I make a request. It's remembered as a demand. I set a boundary. It's retold as withdrawal. Each time the revision sounds reasonable, calm, adult. That never happened. You misunderstood. You're reading too much into it. The words are mild. The effect isn't. Phone calls leave me staring at nothing long after they end, replaying sentences to see where they changed shape. I start writing things down, not defensively, just to keep track. Dates, phrases, small details. It feels excessive, but I'm tired of doubting the order of events. At night, sleep becomes shallow. I wake up with my jaw locked tight, my teeth aching like I've been chewing stone. My chest feels compressed, as if something heavy has been set there and forgotten. I breathe carefully, counting, waiting for the tightness to pass. In the morning, I tell myself I'm overreacting, that everyone gets tired, that families miscommunicate. Then it happens again. In a quiet conversation, I mention a concern. Not emotional. Practical. My mother nods, listens, agrees. 2 days later, she denies the conversation entirely, says it never came up, says I must be confusing it with something else. My father sits nearby, flipping through his phone, not looking up. I watch his thumb scroll. Up, down, up again. The denial isn't aggressive. That's what makes it effective. There's no raised voice to push against, no obvious cruelty to defend myself from. Just a steady insistence that reality is flexible if you repeat yourself calmly enough. It starts to bleed into everything. At gatherings, I speak less. When I do speak, I choose words that can't be easily bent. Short sentences, fewer details. Even then, I hear them come back softened, rephrased, stripped of intent. In private, I replay conversations the way you replay a recording to catch a missed sound. I check myself constantly. Did I say it clearly? Was I calm enough? Did I imagine the tone? The exhaustion creeps in quietly. I stop looking forward to calls. My shoulders tense when the phone lights up. My chest tightens before the greeting finishes. I feel like I'm always bracing for something that won't announce itself until it's already passed. My father's role never changes. He doesn't initiate. He doesn't contradict. He smooths. He deflects. If I ask him directly, he gives me half answers that slide off before they land. Let it go. It's not worth it. You know how she is. He says it kindly, as if kindness erases consequence. In private moments, I catch myself holding my breath without meaning to. My jaw clenches during conversations I haven't even had yet. I wake up tired. Not physically. Something deeper. Like part of me is always on watch. Still, I don't name it. I don't call it anything. I don't label it. I don't reach for language that would make it feel final or dramatic. I just endure it. Collect it. Let it stack. The pattern forms slowly, the way weather does. You don't notice the temperature dropping until you're already cold. Across settings, it stays consistent. On the phone, at holidays, in passing comments made while dishes are being cleared. A light joke at my expense that lands too close to something true. A correction that isn't needed, but is delivered anyway. Each moment alone could be shrugged off. Together, they press. I find myself choosing silence more often, not because I have nothing to say, but because saying it feels like feeding something that thrives on distortion. Silence becomes a way to conserve energy. The physical toll becomes harder to ignore. My neck stays tight. My chest feels permanently braced. I grind my teeth at night until my head aches in the morning. There's a low-level hum of alertness that never fully switches off. Still, I don't accuse. I don't confront. I let the accumulation do what it does best, because repetition reveals more than any argument ever could. And somewhere beneath the fatigue, beneath the confusion, something steadier begins to form. Not anger yet, but recognition. The kind that doesn't spike or shout. The kind that settles in and stays. I don't know what I'll do with it yet. I just know it's no longer going away. I don't notice them at first. That's intentional. They're already in the room when I arrive, seated slightly apart, angled toward the table instead of toward anyone else. Neutral posture, neutral expression, a folder placed neatly in front of them, closed. A pen aligned parallel to its edge. They don't look at me with curiosity or concern. They don't look at my parents at all. Their attention rests on the surface in front of them, as if the room itself is something to be catalogued. No greeting, no introduction that matters, just presence. The room feels different with them in it. Not warmer, not safer in any emotional sense. Quieter somehow, as if sound behaves differently when it knows it might be written down. My mother fills the silence quickly. She always does. Her voice finds its practiced tone, measured, reasonable, confident. She speaks as if she's already being understood. She tells her version smoothly, without edges. The ally listens without reacting. My father sits back, hands folded. He nods at familiar points. He doesn't elaborate. He never does. The ally doesn't interrupt. They don't signal agreement. They don't reassure anyone with facial expressions or murmured acknowledgments. They listen the way people listen when their job is to remember accurately, not empathize. When my turn comes, no one cues me. I don't rush. I don't fill space. I speak only when there's a clear opening, and when I do, I keep it plain. No adjectives that don't belong, no conclusions, just sequence. The ally's pen moves, not constantly, only at certain moments. Dates, specific phrases, names. When the pen touches paper, it's brief, deliberate, then still again. At one point, my mother circles back to a detail she's already covered. The story shifts slightly, just enough to smooth a gap. The ally looks up for the first time. "Can you clarify the timing on that?" they ask. The question is calm, unloaded. It doesn't accuse. It doesn't challenge. It just asks for precision. My mother pauses. It's a fraction of a second, but I see it. She adjusts. Answers. The ally nods once and writes something down. The room tightens. No one comments on it. No one needs to. Later, my father adds a detail meant to close the loop. Something vague. Something reassuring. The ally doesn't look up this time. They ask, "Is that your recollection or something you were told?" The question lands softly. It doesn't bruise. It doesn't push. My father clears his throat. He answers carefully. The pen moves again. I feel something loosen in my chest. Not relief exactly. More like orientation, the sense that gravity is working again, that statements are being weighed by someone who has no stake in how they sound. The ally doesn't offer comfort. They don't meet my eyes and nod. They don't say they understand. They don't say anything that could be mistaken for alliance. They don't need to. Their neutrality does the work. They ask only what needs to be asked. When answers wander, they guide them back. When something is repeated, they let it repeat and mark the difference. When silence appears, they let it sit. No promises are made, no outcome suggested. At the end, they close the folder. The pen goes back into place. They stand, thank everyone equally, and say they'll be in touch if anything further is needed. That's all. They leave without looking back. The room exhales too late. My mother resumes her posture, but something is off. The confidence doesn't quite settle where it used to. My father avoids eye contact altogether. Nothing has changed on the surface, but something has shifted underneath. I don't smile. I don't acknowledge it. I don't attach hope to the allies' presence, or imagine them as anything more than what they are. A function, a process, a witness. And for the first time in a long while, I don't feel alone in the record. not protected, just accurately observed. Sometimes that's enough to change the direction of everything. I don't change my behavior. That's important. I stay polite. I answer messages with the same tone I always have. Brief, clear, non-reactive. No confrontations, no pointed questions, no sudden distance that would signal suspicion. If anything, I become easier to talk to. People relax around compliance. They speak more freely when they think nothing is being recorded except memory. I start keeping a separate record, quiet and methodical. Not a diary, not a narrative, just facts, dates, times, exact phrases copied as written, screenshots saved without annotation, emails archived in full threads, not fragments, nothing editorial. If something happens on a call, I note the time and what was said as close to verbatim as I can remember it, then move on. If something is denied later, I don't argue. I let the denial exist beside the record that contradicts it. Side by side. I don't announce the change. I don't hint at it. This isn't about catching anyone off guard. Then it's about allowing patterns to finish forming without interference. My parents continue as they always have. The small rewrites, the softened revisions, the confidence that comes from never having been challenged with anything sturdier than emotion. I don't interrupt them. Strategic silence is different from avoidance. Avoidance hides. Silence listens. I let them explain themselves fully. I let conversations run long when they want to talk. I don't correct timelines. I don't fill gaps. I don't remind them of earlier versions. The more space I give, the more they use it. Messages arrive with confident summaries of events that don't match previous ones. I respond with a neutral acknowledgement, got it, or understood. And nothing else. No pushback, no clarification requests. Each time, the record grows. Time passes without ceremony. Seasons change. The air shifts. Clothing rotates. Holidays come and go. I mark nothing emotionally. I keep functioning. The ally stays in the background. No check-ins. No guidance. No encouragement. That's how it should be. This isn't a partnership built on reassurance. It's a process that doesn't require belief to continue. I learn how to contain myself. When something unfair happens, I don't react in the moment. I let the feeling rise, crest, and pass without being expressed. I breathe through it. I ground myself in routine. I go for walks. I sleep when I can. I keep my body steady so my mind stays clear. Emotional self-containment becomes a discipline. I stop hoping for acknowledgement. Hope is noisy. It leaks. It wants answers now. I replace it with expectation. Not of apology, not of change, but of eventual alignment between truth and record. That alignment doesn't need my help. The documentation becomes heavier with time, not in volume, but in density. The contradictions stack. The phrasing repeats. The justifications recycle themselves. Stress, misunderstanding, faulty memory, always reasonable, always tidy. I remain neutral. When my parents speak to me, I listen. When they don't, I don't chase. I don't seek reassurance or correction. I let access remain available without being demanded. They don't notice the shift because nothing looks different. That's the point. Months pass. I don't count them precisely. I don't need to. The record does. I start to feel something unfamiliar. Not excitement, not relief, but trust. Not in people, in process, in the way repetition clarifies itself when left alone. There's a satisfaction in watching leverage accumulate invisibly, in knowing that the work being done doesn't announce itself and therefore can't be interfered with. I don't imagine outcomes. I don't rehearse conversations. I don't picture vindication. That kind of thinking is emotional rehearsal, and it clouds judgment. Instead, I focus on accuracy. The ally surfaces briefly, indirectly, a request for clarification, a reminder about format. No commentary, no tone, just procedure. I respond promptly, precisely. I provide what's asked for and nothing more. Then silence again. My parents continue speaking freely. They fill it with certainty. They make plans based on assumptions that haven't been checked. They rely on the idea that control remains where it's always been. I don't disabuse them of that belief. Strategic patience isn't passive, it's active restraint. It's the choice to let someone finish building the case they don't realize they're constructing. I keep my posture relaxed, my voice even. I don't reward manipulation with reaction or punish it with withdrawal. I stay consistent, predictable, calm. That calm becomes disarming. They stop guarding themselves around me. Why would they? I'm not arguing. I'm not accusing. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just there. Time keeps moving. The record keeps filling. The ally stays unseen. And slowly, without fanfare, the balance shifts. Not in the room, not in conversation, somewhere quieter. Somewhere that doesn't care about tone or intention or family roles. Somewhere facts are allowed to be heavy. I feel anticipation settle in, not sharp, not urgent. A steady awareness that the ground is already set, that nothing dramatic needs to happen for the outcome to be inevitable. I don't feel powerful, I feel prepared, and there's a difference. The room does the work before anyone speaks. It's long, rectangular, evenly lit, no windows close enough to look out of. The table is polished to the point of reflection. Chairs are arranged with intention. No casual clustering, no place to hide at the edges. Water glasses already set. Notepads placed at each seat. This isn't a family space. It doesn't soften for anyone. There are others here. Not many, but enough. Neutral faces, neutral posture. People who weren't present for the history and don't need it explained. They sit with their bodies angled toward the table, not toward each other. Their attention is professional, not personal. My parents arrive confident. My mother smiles as she takes her seat, the way she always does when she believes she controls the narrative. She makes a light comment about the room, about the process, about how these things are usually straightforward. Her voice lands easily. She sounds practiced. My father sits beside her, relaxed. He nods along. He doesn't scan the room. He doesn't need to. This is familiar territory for him. The comfort of being adjacent. On of letting someone else speak first. I say nothing. That unsettles her slightly. Not enough to show. Just enough to register. The ally enters last, carrying a slim folder and a tablet. No urgency, no ceremony. They greet everyone evenly and take their seat without remark. They don't explain what's about to happen. They don't need to. The setting explains it. One of the neutral parties outlines the purpose of the meeting in precise, unadorned language. No accusations, no conclusions, just scope, process, what will be reviewed and how. My mother listens, nodding. My father folds his hands. Casual denial comes easily. When asked about a specific event, my mother answers with confidence. She dismisses it lightly. That's not accurate, she says. I think there's been some confusion. She glances at me briefly. Not hostile, almost indulgent. My father adds a comment meant to steady the room. There's been a lot of stress lately, he says. Memories get crossed. I remain silent. The ally doesn't react. They don't interrupt. They let the statements land fully. They let the room absorb the certainty with which they're delivered. Then they open the folder. The sound is small, but it changes something. They don't look at my parents when they speak. They address the table. Let's establish a timeline, they say. Dates are introduced. Not vaguely. Specifically, the ally references a message sent on a particular day at a particular time. The wording is read verbatim. There's no commentary attached to it. Just the words, exactly as they were written. My mother's smile tightens. She responds quickly, reasserting her earlier version. That message has been misunderstood, she says. That's not what I meant. The ally nods, makes a note. They move on. Another item, another date, another quote. This time from a different medium. The phrasing is similar, the implication clear. My father shifts in his chair. He clears his throat. I don't recall it that way, he says. The ally doesn't challenge him. They simply ask, is that based on your own recollection or on what you were told afterward? The question is procedural. It doesn't accuse. My father hesitates. He answers carefully. The room records the pause. One of the neutral parties asks for clarification on a discrepancy. My mother answers with confidence, but her rhythm is off now. She backtracks slightly, adjusts, rephrases. The ally moves to the next document. The pattern begins to show itself without being named. Statements placed next to each other, not argued, just aligned. Earlier certainty meets later denial. Calm explanations meet written contradiction. I watch my parents' posture change in increments too small to dramatize. My mother sits straighter. Her hands stop moving. My father leans back, then forward again, as if trying to find a position that feels familiar. There is no raised voice. There is no confrontation. The tension comes from containment. Each time denial appears, it's acknowledged neutrally and set beside something sturdier. Each time a memory is questioned, it's contrasted with a record that doesn't need remembering. The ally doesn't rush. They don't dramatize. They let silence stretch when an answer is incomplete. They let the neutral parties ask questions that can't be redirected. At one point, my mother attempts to laugh something off. The sound lands awkwardly in the room and doesn't travel. No one joins her. She stops. My father doesn't look at her. I stay still. My hands rest flat on the table. My breathing remains even. I don't correct. I don't clarify. I don't point out what's obvious. The environment does that for me. The stakes become clear not through speech, but through process. Through the way questions narrow. Through the way options close without being announced. Through the absence of emotional cushioning. There's nowhere to redirect this. No private hallway. No familiar script. No authority that belongs to them. Only the table, the documents, the witnesses. When the ally finishes presenting, they close the folder again. The sound is soft. Final without being final. One of the neutral parties summarizes what's been established so far. Their language is careful, precise, unloaded. My parents listen. My mother's face has changed. Not dramatically, just enough. The confidence has thinned. The casual ease is gone. She sits very still now. My father nods once, slowly. He doesn't add anything. The room holds. Nothing explosive happens. No accusation is hurled. No verdict delivered. But the narrative has lost its escape routes. What was once flexible is now fixed. What could once be rewritten is now anchored. The truth isn't shouted into the light. It's placed there and left. I don't feel triumph. I feel something quieter. The controlled dread in the room doesn't belong to me. It belongs to people realizing, too late, that certainty doesn't survive contact with records. I stay silent until the end. When the meeting adjourns, there's no dramatic exit. Chairs move, papers are gathered. People stand and leave in an orderly way. My parents don't look at me. They don't need to. The room has already spoken. The shift happens without ceremony. The ally places the documents on the table one by one. Not slid forward, set down, flat, aligned. Each page faces the room, not any single person. There's no announcement, no framing language, just paper. The first document establishes a date. The ally reads it aloud, evenly. The timestamp is precise. The signature is clear. The handwriting unmistakable. My mother leans forward slightly. Her eyes narrow, not in anger, but in recalibration. This wasn't part of the version she brought with her. The ally turns the page. Another document. Same subject. Different wording. Different date. The contradiction is visible before it's named. The ally doesn't name it. They don't need to. They let the room do the math. My father shifts again. This time, he doesn't hide it. His hand moves to the edge of the table and stays there, fingers pressed flat, as if anchoring himself. The ally continues. Each document builds on the last, a message confirming a decision, a follow-up that denies it, a form submitted, a later statement claiming it never existed. Dates spaced just far enough apart to remove coincidence. The sequence is deliberate. There's no commentary. No emphasis added by tone. The ally's voice doesn't rise or fall. They read exactly what's written, then stop. Silence fills the space where argument used to live. My mother opens her mouth, then closes it. She looks at the papers again, as if expecting them to rearrange themselves. Her confidence doesn't shatter. It thins, becomes brittle. That's not... She starts, then stops. The ally looks up for the first time in several minutes. Not at her. At the neutral parties. This document was submitted on this date, they say. This statement was made afterward. A pause. They are inconsistent. Nothing more. The words hang there, heavier than accusation. My father doesn't speak. He stares at the table now, not the documents. His earlier nods are gone. His posture collapses inward slightly, like a structure that's lost a support beam. Another page. This one carries multiple signatures. Not dramatic. Administrative. The kind of paper no one argues with because it doesn't argue back. It just exists. The ally places it beside the others, creating a line, a timeline. My mother's breathing changes. It's subtle, quicker, shallower. She reaches for a glass of water and misses it the first time. When she does lift it, her hand shakes just enough to notice. She doesn't drink. One of the neutral parties leans forward to look more closely. They don't ask a question. They don't need to. Their attention alone changes the temperature of the room. The ally continues. Each contradiction is exposed the same way, quietly, sequentially, without commentary. Denial is replaced not by confrontation, but by accumulation. The kind you can't talk your way around. I watch my parents as witnesses do what witnesses do, absorb. Their faces don't show outrage. They show calculation failing. My mother tries once more to regain footing. I think there's been some misunderstanding, she says carefully. Her voice is softer now, measured. The ally doesn't respond directly. They gesture to a line on the page. This wording is explicit, they say. There's no ambiguity here. They stop. That's it. No argument follows. No counterpoint. Just a statement of fact placed into the room like a weight. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's occupied by understanding. My father exhales slowly. He doesn't speak, and he doesn't look up. Whatever role silence once played for him, it no longer shields him. It just marks his absence. The documents remain on the table, unchanged. No one reaches for them. No one pushes them away. The ally closes their tablet. The sound is small, controlled. We've established the sequence, they say. We'll proceed accordingly. Proceed accordingly. The phrase doesn't threaten, it doesn't promise, it simply removes uncertainty. One of the neutral parties summarizes what's now clear. Their language is careful, procedural. They don't assign motive, they don't speculate, they describe what the documents show and what that means for next steps. My parents listen without interrupting. The power in the room has shifted completely, and no one has raised their voice. There's no gloating, no satisfaction displayed, no need for it. Dominance doesn't announce itself when it's factual. It just settles. I stay still. I don't look at my parents. I don't look at the documents. I don't need to. This moment isn't about reaction. It's about replacement. Denial has been replaced by record, narrative by sequence, control by process. The witnesses absorb the truth the way professionals do, without drama, without attachment. They don't react emotionally because emotion isn't required for recognition. My mother's face is pale now, not shocked in the theatrical sense, just emptied. Her certainty has nowhere to stand. My father finally looks up. His eyes meet the table's reflection, not mine. He nods once, reflexively, as if agreement might still smooth something over. It doesn't. The ally gathers the documents back into the folder, not hurried, not slow. They treat the papers with the same neutrality they've treated everything else. When they close the folder, the sound is definitive. No one says anything for a moment. That moment stretches, then ends. The meeting moves on to logistics. The reversal is complete, and it's irreversible, not because anyone has been humiliated, but because facts don't unhappen. I feel no rush of victory, no need to speak. What I feel is steadiness. The kind that comes when the ground beneath you stops shifting and reveals it was solid all along. Some power doesn't come from winning. It comes from not needing to explain anymore. I don't add anything when it's my turn. That surprises them. There's an opening, procedural, polite, where I could ask for more, where I could press. And where I could describe the damage in detail and let it land harder now that the room would hold it. I don't. I decline retaliation, not verbally, practically. I tell them I'm not seeking penalties beyond what's already required. I'm not requesting statements. I'm not interested in apologies delivered under pressure. I say it evenly, without emphasis, the way you say something that's already settled. The consequences stay. They're visible and structural. Documents corrected, authority reassigned, access narrowed to what's appropriate and nothing more. Processes triggered that don't reverse themselves just because feelings change. That's enough. My mother looks up at me for the first time since the papers went down. She seems confused by the absence of anger, as if she'd prepared herself for something louder. My father exhales again, slower this time, like someone setting down a weight they can't pretend they weren't carrying. I don't explain my choice. I don't need to. Mercy doesn't argue. It just draws a line and refuses to cross it. I state my boundaries plainly. What contact will look like. What information will move through which channels. What won't be discussed again. The language is calm, specific, final. No ultimatums. No threats. Just parameters. Everyone writes it down. The neutral parties acknowledge it. The ally nods once and notes it. No one questions the restraint. In rooms like this, restraint reads as credibility. There's no humiliation, no demand for confession, no public reckoning staged for effect. The truth has already been witnessed. Piling on would only be noise. I stand when it's appropriate to stand. Chairs move. Papers are gathered. The meeting concludes the way meetings conclude when their work is done, cleanly, without emotion. My parents linger, uncertain. There's a moment where something might be said. It passes. I leave without looking back. In the hallway, the light is different. less clinical. My shoulders drop an inch without my permission. The tightness in my chest loosens. Not all at once. Enough. I don't feel generous. I feel clear. Choosing mercy doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't soften consequences or restore access that's been lost. It simply refuses to turn justice into spectacle. That refusal matters, because power doesn't have to bruise to be real, and strength doesn't need an audience to hold. I step outside and keep walking. Some people expect punishment to look like anger. Sometimes it looks like distance. I don't wait for permission to feel finished. The quiet follows me without effort, a steadiness that doesn't ask to be believed. What's closed stays closed. What's limited stays limited. The path forward is narrow and intentional, but it's mine. I don't need their understanding to keep it. I don't need their agreement to stand on it. Peace, I learn, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of self-respect. Nothing else is required now. Not permission, not explanation, not repair, not closeness. Just the ordinary quiet that arrives when control finally ends for everyone involved here. You might recognize yourself in this without meaning to. If you were the reliable one, the quiet fixer, the person who remembered dates and smoothed edges so everyone else could stay comfortable, this probably felt familiar. Not dramatic, not explosive, just heavy in a way that never quite named itself. Maybe you were the one who kept the peace by holding more than your share of it. The one who listened carefully because details mattered. The one who learned early that staying calm was safer than being right. You didn't forget what happened. You just stopped arguing about it. Stories like this aren't rare. They just don't announce themselves. They move through families quietly, carried by people who don't raise their voices and don't make scenes. People who are easy to underestimate because they don't demand space. If you've ever watched someone deny something you know happened and felt your body react before your mouth did, you know the feeling. The tight jaw, the stalled breath, the moment where you decide whether explaining is worth the cost. Some of you learned, like I did, that truth doesn't need volume. It needs time. It needs a place where it can sit without being rearranged. And sometimes it needs you to stop performing your pain so it can be seen clearly. You don't have to be angry to be right. You don't have to be loud to be credible. You don't have to punish someone to protect yourself. There are rooms where stories stop working and records begin. There are moments when silence becomes structure. There are endings that don't look like victory, but feel like relief. If this resonated, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're precise. Because you noticed patterns before they had names. Because you held on to yourself when it would have been easier to react. This isn't about winning against anyone. It's about recognizing when explanation has run its course. About knowing when to let the truth speak in a language that doesn't argue back. And maybe the quiet relief you felt listening isn't sadness at all. Maybe it's recognition. The sense that your steadiness was never invisible, only waiting for the right light. That patience is not delay, and restraint is not surrender. It's preparation. It's choosing a future where you don't have to keep proving what you already know, without asking permission from anyone ever again who doubts you. Some people don't lose you in a fight. They lose you when you stop explaining.